I am probably like a lot of you gardeners out there, and during gardening season, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with cooking in general. I like to cook, but not necessarily after I've been outside in the garden all day, or for a lot of people after they've been sitting at a desk, they want something that's healthy, that's easy, blah, blah, blah. The same thing we hear all of the time. So you have come to the rescue. This is my friend Hailey Howard with Feel Good Food Company, and she is going to help us put together a really wonderful composed salad based on things that are all fresh and seasonal. Now, ideally, you would harvest these from your own garden, but obviously that's not the case for everyone. So because these things are seasonal, they're really good at your grocer now, at your farmer's market from your CSA, and they're also at a really good price point because they're seasonal. So let's talk a little bit about what we've got going on here from a nutrition standpoint, from an ease of assembly standpoint. But first of all, I guess, let's have her tell us a little about her street cred and why Hailey really has the gravitas to do this.
Sure. So I have a bachelor's degree in dietetics, which means I have studied the chemistry of our human metabolism, as well as how certain foods metabolize in our bodies, whether individually or in combination with other foods.
And more importantly, I've tasted the stuff that she puts together, and it's really, really delicious. So one of the things I loved about this Hailey, this recipe, is that some of it can be prepared in advance.
Yes, absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about what the ingredients are and what you can do ahead of time.
So since this is a salad, ideally, even though the asparagus and the quinoa are cooked, ideally we'd want it to put it together once it's cooled off. So the quinoa can absolutely be prepared ahead of time, and you can just stick it in your fridge in a container and it would be just fine. You may have to fluff it up once you take it out of the fridge to use it again, or you may have to let it sit at room temp for 5 to 10 minutes, but it would be totally fine to throw on your salad from there.
Let me interrupt you just once. If people have not cooked with quinoa before, or they're not familiar with it as a really healthy grain, where would you find it in the food aisle?
So quinoa, you're gonna find, you can either find it in with all of the rices and grains, or if you shop at a store that has a bulk section, they most likely will have quinoa in that bulk section. And that would be the most preferred way to buy it.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so now tell us about the asparagus.
So the asparagus is again roasted for the salad, but you don't want to serve it piping hot on your salad, right? Because it's gonna wilt your greens. So you want to roast it in just enough time to where it has a few minutes to cool down, so that it's about the same temperature as your other ingredients.
Okay, and what temperature did you roast it at?
So I roasted this asparagus at 400 degrees, and it should take about 5 to 10 minutes. You don't want to over roast it. You want it to have a little bit of a bite to it, but you want it to be brown on the outside.
Yeah, I love that crunchy texture. I think these kinds of salads are all about texture and freshness, and then
lots of flavors. All I did was olive oil and salt. So that's all you need to season it. Okay, very good. Okay, and then we've got some herbs going here. Tell me about that. So we've got some fresh basil and some fresh cilantro, which we will add to the salad.
And I adore both of those. I think everything benefits from having either cilantro or basil on it.
Agree.
And then what kind of greens do we have here?
And then we've got some arugula and some baby spinach. Arugula is so great in my opinion.
I love it.
It's very nutrient dense, but it's just so peppery and bright and delicious, and it can add that pop of flavor to pretty much anything that you want. You can serve it fresh in a salad, you can wilt it and put it in something else.
And anecdotally, a lot of times as the season gets hotter and hotter, you will find that likewise your arugula will get hotter and hotter too. It will get peppier, pepperier, is that a word? More peppery, and it will really, I think, have a more bold flavor. Some people don't like that. I absolutely love it. So it's kind of one of those things. Harvest it early if you want it to be a little bit more mellow.
It's definitely one of those things to where if you've never had arugula before and you're used to eating greens, it has a way stronger taste than your typical green. But if you give it a chance and take it a couple of times, guaranteed to like it.
So if you've got fussier eaters in your household, you might want to go a little bit heavier on the spinach and a little bit lighter on the arugula. Okay, so let's do it and show just how easily this comes together.
So let's go ahead and make some dressing first. So I've just got some olive oil in the bottom of this little carafe. And when you're making a salad dressing, you really just need an oil and a vinegar. Okay. Of course, we can use other things to season it and brighten it up. But for this salad particularly, we've got the arugula, we've got the roasted asparagus, we've got the herbs. We really should not be lacking in flavor. Right. So we should have plenty of seasoning to where we can just mix up a little bit of olive oil and lemon juice, and that's what we're going to use for our dressing. And I tend to, with these type of dressings, do more of a 1-to-1 ratio.
And you're using your hand as a sieve
so
to catch any seeds.
If you have a lemon squeezer, you can absolutely use that, and it will make your life more simple. But
and look at how, you know, just from an aesthetic standpoint, that is just so beautiful. And look at the clarity of that olive oil. It's probably an extra virgin olive oil. I think it's really, really beautiful.
Extra virgin olive oil, and you could do the same thing, you know, with any other vinegar. If you put an apple cider vinegar or a balsamic or a red wine vinegar, and with your olive oil, it's going to make that same salad dressing as well.
Okay, now, Hailey, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Would it be feasible to use something like an orange in place of a lemon? Absolutely. And would that add some sweetness to it?
So an orange would add more sweetness, so it may not be enough vinegar. You might want to add a little apple cider vinegar or something like that.
To brighten it up and give it kind of a tartness?
But orange juice and olive oil would be just fine as well. And you can always kind of tell where you're at because the oil and vinegar are going to separate. So as you can see here, look, that's about perfect as far as a 50-50 ratio between the oil and the vinegar.
I love that tip, and it's so pretty.
So all you need to do with the dressing is have a container that has a lid on it.
Okay.
You can use a mason jar, you can use whatever you want. So you're just going to put the lid on it.
And you can even do this in advance.
You can absolutely keep this in advance.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
I find a lot of times that I love salads, but I won't make a salad for dinner just because I'm too lazy to make the dressing.
Right.
Now, I know that sounds like I'm extremely lazy, but sometimes
it's just one more thing you have to put together. And you're right. Sometimes it's just too much. So there, easy as that.
And look at how beautifully creamy it is. I just love it. It's really emulsified and it looks wonderful. Okay, so then
you're just going to take some of your greens.
This could not be easier. And look, we've barely even used any utensils.
Sure, yeah.
So it's easy cleanup too.
So easy to clean up. And then just use your tongs and kind of incorporate it as best you can.
I can already smell it.
And then you're gonna add a little bit of quinoa.
And does it make any difference what order you do this?
It doesn't. You want I like to incorporate my quinoa. You don't have to. You can always, you know, put it on top after you plate the salad.
So Hailey, if somebody doesn't like quinoa, what other kinds of grains could they use?
There are lots of good whole grains. You could use brown rice, you could use farro. The thing with quinoa that people tend to like these days is it is gluten-free, whereas farro is a wheat grain and rice is gluten-free as well. So if you wanted to use a brown rice, that would be fine.
I think it's prettier too, and it has kind of a nutty.
But quinoa is more nutrient dense than rice, whether it's brown rice or white rice. So if you use quinoa, you're just adding more nutrients to the meal.
Yeah, good to know. And we can definitely all use that. And I know a lot of people are trying to get away from eating so much rice, whether it's brown or white rice.
Yes.
Okay, so then what's next?
So from here, you're gonna put some herbs in it. So I just like to kind of pluck the leaves off of these cilantro stems.
I can help you instead of just standing here like a dolt. And oh my gosh, that smells so good. And ideally, if you have another bowl close by and you've got some trash or whatever, you know, put all of that wonderful stuff that can end up in your compost pile.
Way to
have a trash bowl here for your compostable, things.
Okay. So from here, we're gonna add the basil, but first we need to prepare the basil.
Okay.
So we're going to do something called chiffonade.
I love the word chiffonade.
Isn't that fun?
I love the word and I love doing it. But let's show everybody what a chiffonade is.
So you're gonna pick off your basil leaves. Obviously, if they're larger, put those on the bottom.
And if you don't like basil, if for some reason it just doesn't, you know, flip your switch, then you could leave it out.
Sure. And, you know, a lot of people don't like cilantro.
Right, yeah.
So,
which I find inexplicable myself.
I agree.
Myself.
Linda, I completely agree.
Whatever components of this you may not like, obviously, just omit them. If you don't like arugula, if you don't like cilantro, if you don't like basil, just omit it.
You add some kale instead if you would rather do that. It has a less strong flavor. It's a little bit more fibrous as far as the texture is concerned, but it would absolutely work.
And I mean, in order to make all of this palatable, say to a fussy kid or something like that, you could even use some iceberg lettuce in there that has some nice crunch to it. It's not as healthy or as nutrient dense.
But what I like to do sometimes in that case is I will mix, instead of an iceberg, a romaine, which is very similar.
Exactly, I love that.
With a spinach. So add a few spinach leaves in with that romaine, and it will at least give them a little bit of nutrient density.
And that crunch, the other thing I like about that is it's a beautiful composition of the light with the dark
I totally
greens.
agree. I love to mix the greens.
We're very visual around here.
Okay, so you're going to stack up these leaves nicely like that, and then you're going to roll them. I like to kind of roll them at an angle, nice and tight. And then you're going to hold onto that roll, and you're just going to slice it at an angle.
And that's the fun part, especially with a really good sharp knife.
Yes. So then you wind up with these beautiful little basil ribbons.
What I love about this and the way you're cooking this is it's a very sensual experience. It's easy. It
smells good.
Beautiful to look at.
It's fresh.
It titillates your olfactory sense.
Absolutely.
I'm sure will taste wonderful, and it's just...
And if you've never added basil to your salads, you are missing out.
You're missing out on something.
Because the flavor that basil adds to a salad is so, so, so good.
So this would be a great salad for the end of summer when we literally have basil coming out of our ears.
Absolutely. I mean, add it to everything in that case.
Yeah, because you can only make so much pesto and so many other things. Yes, again, it enhances the flavor of everything.
Okay, I'm gonna grab a bowl.
Okay.
Actually, I'm gonna grab a plate.
This would be great for a ladies' lunch. It would be great for those of us who are still eating bread. It would be great with just some crusty bread.
It would be great with some bread because there's no starchy carbohydrates beside the quinoa in this meal. And if you did omit the quinoa, you could absolutely add a crusty bread.
A wonderful indulgence, and I personally would pair it with a chilled rosé. I think this would be wonderful for al fresco dining. The other thing I think this would be great for, Hailey, how easy would this be to cook this stuff in advance and package it up for a picnic?
This would be perfect for a picnic, and you could also add a piece of protein to it. You could add a piece of roasted salmon or some sauteed shrimp. That would both be very delicious.
Yes, because as I was telling you earlier, my husband is definitely a meat and potatoes kind of guy, and he thinks it's not real unless there is some meat in it.
Yes.
But again, it's so beautiful. I can't say that enough how beautiful it is. And look at this.
So that's the finished product. So easy, so fresh.
The only thing I would add to it that we don't have, how beautiful would it be to complement and adorn the plate with one beautiful nasturtium blossom right on top.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Nasturtium's an edible flower. I think that would be absolutely beautiful. You are the best to come and show us how to do that.
No problem.
Can we have you back again?
Of course, absolutely. So good to be here.